And we're back to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes a show business. New episodes again each weekday morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com and made available on demand on our YouTube channel and on iTunes, as well as a lot of other podcasting sites. So wherever you're finding the program, whether you're listening or you're watching, thank you so much for taking some time to listen to our program. A lot of great information coming from this program as we talk to a variety of different business professionals each and every weekday morning on the program. Today we'll be talking with Steve Smith. He owns GrowthSource Coaching, a business and executive coaching firm that works with business professionals to improve their leadership, management, operations, and marketing performances. Considered a catalyst for change by the California Business Journal, Steve has delivered a strategy-based business techniques to over 400 businesses across the United States and around the globe. So Steve, welcome to the program today.
Jamie, thank you for having me. I appreciate being on.
So talk to us a little bit about your career. I know you spent 30 years as a manufacturing executive. Did that lead into your career as a coach? But kind of take me through your career here.
Okay, the short story on this was when I got out of college, I immediately got picked up by General Mills. It was a fascinating company to work with. I got great training, got promoted several times. That led me to the Lysol company, which is the company that moved me out to California, which is where I'm at now. I had a wonderful career. I mean, not everything was rosy, but when I look back at all the things that I did, the people that I met, just the things that I got involved in, I really couldn't have purchased a better career if that's such a thing.
Right.
So when I finally got off in 2008, there's a couple of factors. The biggest one was I was just tired of traveling. For 18 years, I would leave on Sunday and I'd come back Thursday. Mm-hmm. And so when you wake up one day and realize you're living in one of the nicest places in the country. I mean, Florida is a beautiful place. Southern California is a beautiful place. One of the top 10 places people spend money to vacation. I didn't know who my neighbors were. So I thought there's got to be a better way to go with this. And that's when I got into coaching. And I realized that was the right time. I couldn't have done it earlier. I got off at a point where I was totally confident what I was capable of doing. I had amassed a certain amount of knowledge and expertise. It was a great thing to roll into a business where I could help other people gain the same type of strategies, techniques, learnings, and ability to do better.
And so you took your career as a manufacturing executive from General Mills, from Lysol. You had built up a lot of lessons that you had learned, and then you turned that into GrowthSource Coaching. Am I correct?
There's a one piece in between. When I actually got into this, I barely knew what coaching was. I mean, in my corporate career, we had executive coaches here and there, but I didn't have any idea that the entire small business community there were people out here that did this as a living. So when I was introduced to it, I bought into a franchise to start off with, and it was a very small kind of a startup franchise. But I really fell in love with their whole practice, the way they brought people through how to run better businesses. And so I got into that, and things were going well until 2011, March 8th. It's one of those dates like my anniversary. I'll never forget it. Right. I got a call from the owner of the company. He said, you know what, we can't keep going. We run out of money. So that was an 8-minute conversation, and I get off the phone, and my wife walks in, and I said, it's all over.
Oh, wow.
All the money, all the time. I mean, what do you do with a franchise when the mothership goes down?
Right.
I mean, nothing. You have nothing of value.
Yes.
So I took everything I purchased, everything that I had created, and I repurposed it. I just basically came up with a new name, came up with a new direction, added one piece to it that the other company didn't have, which for me was just integral. They didn't do anything with management. And what I'm finding is the vast majority of people that I run into at some point in time, their management is not up to speed with what they're trying to accomplish. So I built that in, and I started running with it, and it was actually the best thing that could ever happen to me.
So talk to them. You got your business now, which was spun off of the franchise. I guess the good thing is you can't be sued for anything. You had all this stuff which you had paid for already as a franchise, parlayed it into GrowthSource Coaching, and now you're the head coach of the organization. And so talk to me about the launch then of your own business outside of the franchise. Was that a scary moment thinking that you didn't have the franchise behind you now?
It was, because what you realize is that now you have to do everything yourself. All the marketing it's got to come off your desk. And about a year into it, what I look back and realized, and I think this is the situation with a lot of franchises, even though they might do national marketing, most of the local marketing has got to come from the person on the ground. So in reality, not a lot changed. What it did do was it gave me a lot more doors to open up and do things that I knew were going to be right for my business, but may have not passed muster with the franchise organization earlier. So once I got past that, I mean, it's getting out of my own head. Once I got past that, now I was able to actually go out and do the networking, make the contacts, get on social media, start promoting myself, basically sharing everything I knew. And once I did that, it took me about 9 to 12 months, and I started attracting clients. And 2 or 3 years into it, I realized I couldn't keep the marketing up by myself. I wasn't stable with it. So I hired an assistant to do all of it for me. I give her the raw content. She goes out and does what she does on the internet. And that's where things just kind of broke open.
So today you're probably glad that that franchise had failed, because that led to your own bona fide company free from any ties whatsoever then.
Absolutely. As much as I like those people and I have fond memories, I'm glad that that is an old chapter.
Now, you mentioned that the franchise didn't incorporate management. That's a surprise to me. I mean, as a business coach, you would think management would be at the core of any program. Why was it that management was not part of that, and how did you incorporate it into that program?
Okay, their platform basically dealt with 3 areas: your mindset, how you're thinking about what you're doing in your business, your marketing, and your sales. Because their whole fundamental practice was, if you're not addressing the 2 things that are responsible for generating revenue, it doesn't matter what else you do. If you don't have revenue, you're going to be gone. And to a certain extent, they're right. The problem was we were attracting a lot of startups and people at the very beginning. And once people got past that, there wasn't anything for us to offer them. And of course, when you start building a business beyond yourself and you start getting some size and some infrastructure around you, now management becomes the biggest problem. And we didn't have any real good in-depth information and things that we could help clients with. So that's why I rolled that in, because I thought, all right, once I get people's heads straight and they're aligned with what they're trying to do, the next thing is infrastructure. I mean, if you've got marketing and people, you've got a business where people want what you have, you've got to figure out a way to serve it, or you're going to go down from that.
Now, when you are working with clients, is management oftentimes the core dysfunction in the organization, or is it improper sales techniques and salesmanship? What are you seeing with just the vast majority of businesses that you're working with?
A couple of things. One, if it's a business that has got a fair amount of structure, let's say they've got employees, they might have 1 or more locations. They've been around for anywhere from maybe 8, 10 or more years. What I find is that the owners start to lose their place in terms of what their real role is. They get kind of sucked into the daily operations. They're either doing things they did when they first started the business because they like to do it, or they've just gotten to become a problem magnet and they're just dealing with a lot of tedium. And they haven't figured out how to get themselves above that and bring their people along so that they can kind of monitor and oversee and direct where the company's going, as opposed to being in the middle of it.
One thing I like to ask and talk about a lot is, owners that start a business, they do really well with an employee or 2, but then the growth really starts to take off. And I know myself, I'm a very independent, I like to do everything myself, and I struggle with growth. Knowing when to step out and let somebody else take the helm, I think, is a skill that more and more people need to recognize, because I know everybody wants to be the king of their operation, but you could be holding back your own business.
Yes, and typically what happens is, at some point, you have to really make decisions about, and I'll borrow a term from the real estate market. What is your highest and best use? What are the things that you should spend your time on that are going to do the most for your organization? Everything else needs to be delegated. Delegate and monitor. And what I tell clients is, when you're at that point, when there's something in front of you and you're sitting there thinking, oh, I can knock this out in 30 minutes, what you really should be asking yourself is, who can I get to do this for me? And if there's nobody here that knows how to do this, the second question is, who can I train to do this for me? But any time you spend up front training and delegating so other people can take and run with those things is an investment in time you get back in the future.
Absolutely. And delegating is a challenge I know I face. I know it's a challenge a lot of people face. Can you share with us an example of somebody who kind of stepped aside and then let somebody else kind of lead them, and then they just saw some growth, or just an experience where somebody realized that, I am a type A personality. I like to lead, but you know what? Maybe that person can lead better.
I actually have a client now who's got a fairly good sized magazine publishing business. He's all over Southern California. And it took him years to get to this point, but he would give things to people and then he would go and do them himself. So you're basically telling the person, gee, I wanted you to do it, but I decided to do it myself. So how does the employee feel about that? And at some point you have to catch yourself and say, look, if I've given them good direction, if I know that they understand what the expectation is, and if we've talked about what they need to be able to do this right, all that's left is for me to check in with them to make sure they're staying on the path.
So it took 2 years to break that habit, and then what happened after the individual was able to break that habit?
Well, he's got a general manager running his entire organization. He's got a lady that was just a sales rep that now is a sales manager because she knows how to do everything better than everybody else. She's teaching the reps. He basically has to show up for company meetings and for strategy sessions. And other than that, he's really not needed because everybody else is firmly entrenched in their roles and they know what to do.
You'd think more and more people would want that type of lifestyle where I just got to show up for a meeting once a week. But so many people who start businesses want to be involved in everything and work themselves to death. It's the irony of being an entrepreneur, I think.
Yes. And on the one hand, you want to be involved in everything. On the other hand, when people decide to step away, they usually do it too quick, or they completely vacate altogether and they stop watching what's going on. And either of those circumstances doesn't end well.
Currently talking to Steve Smith. He is the head coach and founder of GrowthSource Coaching. Learn more at growthsourcecoaching.com. We got a lot more coming back from the break with how to manage and grow a business. Again, with Steve Smith of GrowthSource Coaching. Learn more about our program at thatbusinessnetwork.com, and all shows made available on demand there, as well as on iTunes and on YouTube. We will be back in a moment. And we're back to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. Today we're talking with Steve Smith, the head coach and founder of GrowthSource Coaching, and learn more at that site again, growthsourcecoaching.com. So Steve, who is that ideal client, or is there an ideal niche client that you work with?
Yes, and while I can basically work with any business owner who has come to the decision that they need outside help to get them where they want to go, the places I typically do well with are organizations that might be, approaching $1 million a year up to maybe 40 or 50. They've got anywhere from half a dozen employees to maybe, a rank of 25 or 30. They typically are in what I call technical businesses, engineering, IT, medical device. They could be small manufacturers. Any kind of an industrial environment I do really well because I've recognized through the 30 years I was in it, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things you have to think about. There's a whole bunch of places where stuff can go wrong. So you've really got to be on your game to keep it running well and make money from it.
How does one market the different businesses out there depending on industry? For instance, everybody knows about, let's go on social media and do some social media postings. But let's say I'm a tech company, or I'm a manufacturing company, or I'm a farm, for instance. How do you handle these different marketing techniques for these different types of industries?
Well, with everybody, the first thing I ask them is, explain to me as briefly as you can exactly what you do and what it benefits somebody else. Because if the business, and a lot of times this happens, businesses really aren't clear on what their differentiating factor is. If they're just like half a dozen or a dozen other people out there, there's no discernible reason for people to choose them other than they're the cheapest price in town and nobody wants to be that. So they have to really be clear about what they do, why they do it, and why it's beneficial to somebody else. The next thing they've got to do is be able to figure out who is my exact client. Who are the people that are out there looking for me, but they haven't met me yet? What do I have to say to them or show them to get them to want to respond to me on email or pick up the phone or walk into my store? And once you get those two halves nailed down, it's just the middle part is just how best to connect.
You know, it's scary being an entrepreneur because when you ask the typical entry-level entrepreneur, who is your client, the typical answer is, I'll help anybody. I mean, whoever needs my services. And until you can find that niche, which is ideal, it can be a difficult marketplace. And it's better sometimes to cast a smaller net. Can you talk on that?
Yes, niche marketing is the way to go for just about every business that does not fall into the category of being a Fortune 1000 company. In fact, I don't know of a product on the globe for which everybody needs it. I mean, even if you look at the bottled water industry, look at how many players are in the game. Look at how many different ways they try to go to market with what makes them special. Hey, it's water. It's water in a bottle. So you really have to figure out what your slice of a bigger market is so you can differentiate, because if you're not unique and special, nobody's gonna notice you. People don't notice generality. They pick up on things that resonate with what they're looking for.
Now, you lead leaders as a coach and a consultant. How difficult is it to get over those dominant type A personalities when you say you're doing this wrong, you need to do it like this? Is there a period of just, coming together before people start to really act on what you tell them?
Yes, every executive client I pick up, I always have a casual get together first, because I want them to realize why I'm there. I'm not there to try to school them necessarily. I'm really there to help them recognize what they're doing that's getting in their own way, what blind spots they have that they're not seeing, that everybody around them can see, that's not working in their self-interest. So I'm that wingman, that guy that sits on their shoulder and says, okay, here's where you are. You've been here before. What happened last time? What would you do differently this time? And that's all it really is. It's constant discussions about the decisions they make, the thoughts and actions they take, and how they move themselves from here today to being a top-notch player 6 or 9 or 12 months down the road.
Now, I'm on your site, growthsourcecoaching.com. You got a variety of different success stories of people that you've worked with. Let's share a couple of those with the audience. I see you've worked with a company called Logistics Worldwide, a shipping and distribution company. Talk to us about how you help them.
The gentleman that runs that business contacted me, and when I asked him, I said, "Why coaching? Why now? What's important now?" He told me something that I'll never forget. He said, "I've done this. I've gone down this road 2 times before, and I failed both times. I can't afford to fail a third. I have partners. I have people that have invested. I have to be a success with this." So we started working together, and basically he had 2 problems. He had one, trying to get control of his operation, because if you know logistics, all you are is a big giant warehouse with forklifts and trucks and storage, and you're basically taking possession of other people's goods and then shipping them off to where they want to go. So you're kind of that middle person.
Right.
There's a lot of moving parts there. There's a lot of people issues. There's a lot of process issues. And he had to be the leader to direct how to improve that, as opposed to being the guy in the middle that was just dealing with just an onslaught of problems every single day. So for him, a lot of it was how he thought about the role that he had. And that's what caused him to be able to kind of get up above the tree line and start looking at bigger issues and saying, here's where we need to focus our time and our resources. And we worked together for about 1.5 years, and he's doing very well. The business is still there today. They're working with suppliers over in the UK. They're doing quite well.
Do you find so often that people just are self-defeating? If you could just get over your own inadequacies and your own misbeliefs, that we could find more success?
Absolutely. We all have this thing I call a box that we live in. And we've created the box, and the edge of the box is the comfort zone. And depending on how thick the walls of that comfort zone are, depends on how willing you are to make some moderate to significant change about how you do things.
Growth occurs outside of the comfort zone. Yeah.
I can pump strategy into you all day long. And if you're not comfortable enough in terms of trying something, getting beyond your own comfort zone, then it's a waste.
Yeah, growth definitely occurs outside of the comfort zone. I know when I'm outside of my comfort zone, it feels strange. You get in such a routine, and then when that routine is broken, it's scary out there, and a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that.
Absolutely.
Now, you also worked with an IT services company. What was the lesson learned here?
Oh, this was a good one. This was a family-run business, and they have actually grown fairly significantly. They're now in 2 other markets today, but here was the big problem. the husband, who was the kind of the architect and the founder of the business, just loved the IT. He loved that part of it. He loved working with customers to fix their problems. He had almost no interest in dealing with his own employees. So when you have management by proxy or management by absenteeism, eventually the wheels start falling off. And so I had to figure out a way to bring him back into the business just enough to where he could direct it and monitor it and make sure people were delivering on his expectations without getting totally sucked into it, because that was his fear. He didn't want to be in there. He wanted to be out just handling IT problems. And I run into that quite a bit with people in more technical roles. They're really not warm and fuzzy kind of individuals. And unless you're willing to really interact with your employees, that's going to be a problem you're never going to get rid of.
Yeah, definitely a lot of dominant type A personalities, very independent, very free thinkers, and they like to do their own thing. Do you find that so many of them struggle, though, when they start to bring on employees because they were not taught how to really work with other people?
Yes, it's the whole thing I call executive soft skills. Do you listen well? Do you ask the right questions? Do you do you give people a sense that you've got the kind of integrity that they trust and they're willing to follow you? It's not about do they like you. It's about after you give them some hard news, can they walk away saying, you know what, I didn't like the way that sounded, but I trust him, so I'm going to do it.
When businesses begin to grow, where is typically the first hire, or should there be a certain person that should be that first hire in a certain category? What do you see in the industry? What do you advise when somebody asks you, who should I hire?
When people start hiring, what I tell them to do is offload the things that you're not good at or you don't want to fool with. So a lot of times it's the accounting function. Find somebody really good that can keep the numbers in front of you so you're cognizant of what's going on financially, but you don't want to have to do that yourself. If you're hiring people and you're not comfortable with that, bring on a consultant and an HR advisor, somebody that can guide you through that. Because here in California, I'm not sure about what it's like in Florida, but in California, there are minefields all over the place when it comes to hiring people. So you really need to make sure you don't make the right mistakes. IT is another one. If your business is involved in things where you have to have a good IT infrastructure and you can't afford to have somebody on staff, have a company that can remotely help you from outside, so that part you don't have to worry about. So it's those kind of things that are ancillary and important to your business running, but not essential for you to actually be doing.
Got a couple minutes left. Again, Steve Smith of GrowthSource Coaching, based in California. Do you work with people outside of your area? Give a pitch of how you can help people and our listeners.
I can basically work with anybody in the country or around the globe. All we have to do is either have a phone line, an internet connection, and be able to both speak English.
All right. Well, people can reach out to you at growthsourcecoaching.com. Again, Steve Smith, the head coach and founder of the organization. Great discussion. I greatly appreciate you being with me on the program today.
Jamie, thanks a lot. I had a great time, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And again, growthsourcecoaching.com for more information. Catch new episodes of our program each weekday morning at 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. And please connect with us all across social media. You'll find us on facebook.com/thatbusinessshow, where we also stream the videos each and every morning via Facebook Live between 9 and 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And connect with us on Twitter at thatbizshow. You've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Meloni, where business becomes show business.